Howdy folks, it's me, Josh. I'm back. I'm still stuck at Z's place and I'm still being forced to engage in slave labor for the Z-Man. Okay, so I can cross the China video off the list, and the next one is... What if the Anschluss never happened? Huh. Alright, well, let's get into it then. So, the year is 1919, and Austria-Hungary had just broken up, with the surviving states being made to sign the Treaty of Saint-Germain. In Austria, this meant the creation of the First Austrian Republic, and an Anschluss, or unification, with Germany, being forbidden. Most Austrians were very unhappy about this, as they felt that Austria wouldn't be an economically viable country without unification with Germany. And, to an extent, they were right. Austria's economy had completely collapsed, as many economically important regions of Austria-Hungary had been given to the new states carved out of the old empire's remains. And even beyond this, these new states were almost entirely dependent on Austria's banks to stay afloat, which meant that Austria had to bear the burden of holding its old empire without any of the benefits. The political sphere, however, at first glance seemed rather stable, with the Christian Social Party, which held close ties to the Roman Catholic Church, dominating Austrian politics. However, upon closer inspection, Austrian politics were also extremely unstable, with violence constantly rocking the nation. In 1932, however, a turning point came for Austria when a particular Engelbert Dollfuss of the Christian Social Party became chancellor. However, in 1933, Dollfuss dissolved the parliament, which led political violence to erupt into what would be known as the Austrian Civil War. Seeing this unrest as an opportunity, in 1934, Dollfuss managed to transform Austria into a one-party state with himself at its head and create the federal state of Austria. Although the Dollfuss regime seemed just like yet another fascist regime in Europe, it had quite a few differences with Italian fascism and German National Socialism. For one, Dollfuss placed a heavy emphasis on the Austrian Catholic identity, which put it at odds with the atheist Nazi regime and German Protestantism in general, which led them to develop closer ties with the Italians and helped to form a front against the pushes for an Anschluss. However, as many Nazi infiltrators kept pushing for an Anschluss with Germany, Dollfuss cracked down on Nazism, banning the Austrian Nazi Party. However, this action would lead to an attempted putsch on the Austrian government, and Dollfuss being assassinated. The Italians were furious about this assassination, threatening that if the Germans tried to invade Austria, they would declare war on Germany. However, as Dollfuss was succeeded by his education minister, Kurt Schuschnigg, Hitler would keep pushing for the annexation of Austria, which would result in Schuschnigg being forced to legalize the Nazi Party and hold a referendum on whether Austria should be annexed into Germany. Before the referendum could even be held, the Germans invaded Austria and faced no resistance, resulting in Austria being annexed into Germany, not regaining its independence until 1955. But what if that changed? What if, in an alternate timeline, Dollfuss survived his assassination attempt, stayed in power, and kept pushing back against the possibility of an Anschluss? In this timeline, Austria, who would have kept good relations with the Italians, which was one of Dollfuss's main foreign policy ambitions, would end up facing a German invasion. The Italians would intervene on the side of the Austrians, and the Allies, seeing a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles and the Treaty of Saint-Germain, would debate on whether or not to go to war against the Germans. In our timeline, the Allies largely sat on the sidelines while Germany effectively ripped the Treaty of Versailles to shreds. The French were facing many internal issues, and Britain generally lacked confidence in their ability to fight, which would lead many to want to sit out of this war. However, seeing an opportunity to stop the German growth in its tracks, and knowing they'd have Germany nearly completely surrounded with support from the Italians, many would see this war as a surefire victory. Debates would ensue, but with the Germans waging war against the Italians, who the Allies perceived to be a major European power, and more reasonable than the Germans, the Allies would likely end up going to war with Germany, launching an invasion across the Rhine. Now facing a war on two fronts, the Germans, who still hadn't fully rebuilt their military after their defeat in the First World War, would be crushed by the Allies, facing defeat in this war. Following this defeat, the Germans would once again face heavy consequences due to their repeated violations of the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler would be removed from power, and Germany would likely be reorganized by the Allies. Austria, not wanting to take all of Germany, would push for the annexation of some of the largely Catholic regions of southern Germany, access to German industry, and would likely want reparations to keep their economy afloat. Britain and France, wishing to keep Germany weak, would accept these arrangements. With Austria now being removed from under Germany's thumb, the Austrians would likely seek to restore the glory of their empire, whose history they had so idolized. And so, Austria would look for a way to reassert its former control over Europe, first forging closer ties with the nations that had been carved out of its former empire, namely Hungary and Czechoslovakia, largely to exert its influence and to further bolster its own economy. This could ultimately lead to a closer union among them, as well as the Italians, which would be heavily centered around these nations' Catholic identity as a way to bring unity. Many Catholic nations in Europe would see a huge amount of energy behind a push to join this Catholic union, particularly Poland, who is itself interested in establishing a multi-state alliance known as the Intermarium as a way to get protection from the Soviets. In nations such as France, Spain, and Portugal, there would be pushes to join Italy's Latin Bloc alliance following its victory over Germany and growing might. Italy would see a major interest in a Catholic authoritarian regime in France more sympathetic to their fascistic views, and with the help from fellow regimes in Spain and Portugal, would work to prop up a far-right French leader in the then very unstable country. The Protestant states of Europe, particularly the United Kingdom and the remains of Germany, would grow greatly worried about the growing Catholic strength in Europe, which would ultimately lead to a second Great War sparking between the Catholic Union and this new Protestant front. The war would largely be fought in North Germany and the Balkans, as the Catholic Union attempts to liberate Catholic regions of Yugoslavia, and Hungary attempts to reclaim Transylvania. But the effects of the war would go far beyond Europe, as, in America, anti-Catholic discrimination would reach heights that it had never seen before, as American Protestants look on how European Catholics wage war against their fellow Protestants. There would be large pushes for America to join the war on the Protestant side. However, many in America still wanted peace and wouldn't be thrilled about fighting this religious war. The Catholic states of Central and South America, growing worried about America potentially joining the war on the Protestant side, might seek protection by the Catholic Union, which, if America ended up seeing a need to join the war, could open up a new front in the American Southwest. Ireland, as well, might wish to join the Catholic Union against the British, with religious persecution reaching a true breaking point. But will the Catholics manage to defeat the heretics once and for all, or will the Protestants finally see victory over the Papists? As the deadliest religious war in history rages on, none know the answer. So, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to Mr. Z and maybe head on over to my channel where I regularly post content just like this. And so, that's 2 videos down and 2 more to go. Well, till next time, see ya.